The Indiana Pacers are going to make the 2024 NBA playoffs. Immediately after moving off of longtime franchise cornerstones Malcolm Brogdon and Domantas Sabonis, of course they added Tyrese Haliburton from said Sabonis trade and finally let Myles Turner have a front court to himself. And this combination, along with some other young pieces, proved that the Pacers' future is going to be very bright. In what was supposed to be a down year, a rebuilding season in Indiana, the Pacers posted a record of 35-47, and at one point held a record of 23-18. When Tyrese Haliburton was in the lineup, they were 28-28. With the addition of Jarace Walker, the addition of Bruce Brown, alongside their young pieces, the future is bright, no doubt, but they already have an opportunity to make the postseason as soon as next year. Tyrese Haliburton proved himself as an all-star point guard last season. While in the lineup, the Pacers were, as previously mentioned, a 500 team, and he gave them a chance on any given night he was on the court. The assist numbers are flashy, and they're what stands out and will continue to set him apart from the pack, but his scoring should not go underappreciated. He is a very efficient shooter and scorer, especially at the point guard position, shooting 49% from the field and 40% from three on over 20 points a night last season. That level of efficiency from the point guard position, while being the offensive engine of your team, is hard to come by, and will continue to separate Haliburton from many of those around him. Availability continues to be the biggest concern for Haliburton, especially considering the drastic decline in performance the Pacers had without him. 2 of his 3 years now in the league, he has failed to reach the 60-game mark, and so that'll be something to monitor moving forward. That'll be something he and the Pacers hope improves heading into next season. But when he's on the court, we know what he does, and he is very dominant and still has plenty of room to grow. Ben Mathurin dominated off rip in his rookie season, averaging over 20 points a night throughout the month of October, while shooting over 45% from the field and 42% from three. He certainly did cool off from that point forward, specifically after November, but Mathurin certainly proved himself to be a threat on the offensive end, and despite his bench role for the majority of last season, we've seen the pieces that could make him and Tyrese Haliburton one of the best future backcourts in the NBA. Myles Turner finally got a full season with the front court to himself, and it showed how impactful he can be when Sabonis is no longer cramping his style, and it certainly helped that Sabonis was also diming him up. This certainly benefited Myles Turner as he had his career year, and he got his dividends through his extension. Turner posted career highs in points and rebounds, while shooting a career high 55% from the field and a second best mark from three at 37%. He continues to be an elite shot blocker and is a defensive threat opposing teams always have to account for, but similarly to Haliburton, the key will continue to be availability. This is a big who has not played more than 62 games throughout either of the last 4 seasons. Not much needs to be said about Buddy Hield as a guy who was an underappreciated return in the Domantas Sabonis trade, but we know what he does at this point in time in his career. He's an elite three-point shooter, an elite spacer, and underappreciated as one of the better three-point shooters we will ever see, especially as an off-ball mover and a catch-and-shoot guy. There's a reason this dude leads the 2016 draft, a draft that includes Siakam, Brandon Ingram, Jaylen Brown, Ben Simmons. He leads that draft class in total points. That's how impactful Buddy Hield has been, will continue to be as long as he's on the Pacers, and will continue to provide very good spacing on a team that has one of the best playmakers in the league in Tyrese Haliburton. Andrew Nembhard was a pleasantly surprising, impactful young talent in his first year, as he had a very impressive season as far as a second-round pick. He was immediately an impactful and productive backup guard for the Pacers who competes on the defensive end, has respectable three-point shots with tools to develop that shot even further. He possesses a solid in-between game with a really nice-looking floater combined with solid handles and some passing upside. Now, Nembhard will certainly never be the guard in Indiana, thanks to the existence of Tyrese Haliburton and to a lesser extent Ben Mathurin, but he looks very promising as an impactful bench piece going forward, and that's all you can really ask for a dude you took in the second round. Isaiah Jackson is another young piece who had a very underrated season again for the Pacers last year. Now, his offensive game is very simple, but he can get you offensive rebounds whilst being a lob threat, and he will hound the defensive glass night in, night out, and gets you a block a half a night in under 20 minutes. He plays with very high energy. He's going to be on the glass. He's going to protect the rim. And that in and of itself, even if he's always just a lob threat, is going to be valuable in this league. Another young piece that the Pacers will look to see more from this season is Jalen Smith. Another returning piece of the Pacers who had a bit of a shaky start to last year, had a much better time in Indiana post-2022 trade deadline, but hopefully he can bounce back with a better year next year for the Pacers. Now, it's no secret that arguably the biggest problem for the Pacers last season was the power forward position. 8 players started games at power forward last year throughout the season for the Pacers. The most prominent of which were Aaron Nesmith. Yes, Aaron Nesmith started at power forward 48 times. Jalen Smith starting 21 of those games, and Terry Taylor starting 8. The other 5 were much less common, but nonetheless it was a revolving door that included guys like O'Shea Brissett and even James Johnson. Long story short, the Pacers had a revolving door at power forward last season, and through that door typically entered someone who was not fit for that position. I mean, Aaron Nesmith played over half of their games at power forward last year, despite being 6'5", and Terry Taylor was no taller himself. This lack of size, height, and defensive ability on the wing was a detriment of the Pacers and made them one of the worst wing defensive teams in the NBA last year because Buddy Hield was at the 3. So if you're not getting your defense from the 4, it's a struggle. But the Pacers may have very well solved their power forward problems in one go, in one draft selection, with the addition of Jarace Walker. Jarace Walker gives them more size, he gives them more strength than they ever had last year, outside of Jalen Smith. But he's going to be much more productive than Jalen Smith. Jarace Walker will give more rim protection alongside Myles Turner than the Pacers team already had, whilst being able to be a solid perimeter defender. Walker will bring plenty of talent to the offensive end as well, with plenty of upside as a three-point shooter, and even some upside as a shot creator that is sure to provide lots more positive production and consistency moving forward for the Pacers. And that's not the only way the Pacers improved their power forward play, as they did also trade for Obi Toppin. And although Obi Toppin's times in New York has been very much a time of highs and a lot of lows, he has shown some flashes. And I expect Obi Toppin to have a lot more success in Indiana in a new environment and in a situation where he is expected to get a lot of lob opportunities playing next to Tyrese Haliburton. Despite the importance of adding Jarace Walker and Obi Toppin, arguably the Pacers' biggest move of the offseason was signing defending champion Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown has continued to evolve his game year after year from team to team. He started as a tenacious defender in Detroit, moved his way to being a secondary playmaker and screener in Brooklyn, and then went to taking on the lead bench role in Denver, significantly improving his handle, his three-point shooting, and shot creation, and in turn, turned himself into one of the best and most productive bench players in the NBA. Now, it remains unclear whether he is a starter in Indiana or if he's going to continue to be one of the best bench players in the league. We'll see how the rotation works between him and Ben Mathurin, but one thing is for certain. The Pacers have acquired a player with elite defense, solid secondary playmaking abilities, good three-point shooting, and will bring some of the most important intangibles in the game with his championship winning experience and the fact that he makes all of the small winning plays, the extra pass, fighting for loose balls, getting rebounds, hustling on defense, you name it. Bruce Brown is out there doing the things that help teams win basketball games. And so Bruce Brown is going to help the Pacers win a lot of basketball games this season through his impact and through his influence. The Pacers addressed their primary concerns this offseason, specifically on the wing, through the draft and via trade, and even added to the roster with the signing of Bruce Brown. The Pacers are showing a true desire to win immediately, despite only being a year removed from trading Malcolm Brogdon and a year and a half removed from trading Domantas Sabonis. Tyrese Haliburton and company proved to be very ahead of schedule last season, and while still being a very young roster, they clearly have the talent and the combination of veteran pieces to be competitive heading into next season. This was a team that already managed to play 500 basketball with Tyrese Haliburton last year, whilst being extremely young, whilst playing with Aaron Nesmith and Terry Taylor at the power forward position for the vast majority of the season. This Pacers team is set for a postseason appearance and should dominate the Eastern Conference for years to come.